One.
Hello and welcome to the FinTech Wales panel, an opportunity to showcase just a few of the amazing people behind the passion here in Wales, building and growing FinTech businesses across our principality. FinTech Wales is a not-for-profit organisation focusing on empowering FinTechs and financial services across Wales. I'm delighted to see that so many people have opted to join us today. Welcome. I'm your host, Sarah Williams-Gardner, and today I'm going to be talking to Michelle Pearce-Bork, the COO and co-founder at Wealthify, a new democratised approach to investing for all. We've also got Gareth Lewis joining us today, the CEO and founder of Delio, a highly configurable white-labelled platform which allows financial institutions to create, scale, and streamline their end-to-end private investment proposals. We're also welcoming Russell Fisher, the COO of Admiral Pioneer. Admiral Pioneer is about seeding, launching and scaling new businesses serving their customer needs. And lastly, but not least, a great welcome to Sina Yaami, the CEO of and founder of Yoello, the mobile ordering and payment solution. I extend a warm and metaphorical croeso and cymru to you all, and I'm delighted you're able to join us here today. Wales is already a prominent place for fintechs, with businesses and companies and names you might recognise, the likes of Confused.com, Go Compare, money saving experts, having long established their roots here in Wales. The recent Kalifa review highlighted Wales as being a fintech, one of the emerging fintech hubs, highlighting Cardiff in particular as really having the opportunity to grow. Now that our secret is out, that although we've been developing and growing businesses here for years, today is the opportunity to be loud and proud and share more of the great businesses that we have here. We're sharing the people and the passion who are behind just a few of the other further great successes here in Wales. As we've said, Yoello, Delio, Admiral Pioneer and Wealthify. Before we kick off, I'd like to do a shameless plug. Firstly, I'd like to say that FinTech Wales is a membership organisation. We are open to all, not only fintechs, but supporting services. It's really important to have an ecosystem of everybody working together. People who are keen to make Wales and fintech a pillar of the global community. We're all about nurturing talent while connecting and enabling the sector's ecosystem. If you're not already a member, I'd encourage you to join us and amplify our thriving fintechs here in Wales. I'm also going to take this opportunity to proudly and formally launch here today the FinTech Wales Foundry. The FinTech Wales Foundry is a not-for-profit, no-nonsense, no equity accelerator programme. It's got backing from the private sector, and I'm proud that Russell has joined us today. Admiral Pioneer are one of our founding partners, along with Principality Building Society. We've also got great support from global partners, AWS, Google Cloud, IBM, Ernst & Young, Deloitte, just to mention a few, and they are building daily. We are open for applications. Please, if you want to build or scale your business in Wales, working with these established institutions, I'd encourage you to hop along to fintechwales.org and apply. We're really keen to grow jobs here in Wales, drive further growth of an ecosystem that's already here, one that we've most probably not been telling people about. So times are exciting, and now is the time to tell you and share with you some of those fintechs, extra businesses that we have, and some of the brands that maybe you're not as familiar with, but you need to be. So today I'm going to be asking my guests to introduce themselves and to share with you the why behind their business, behind the proposition that they have and why you should be engaging with them. And then we'll look at why they've built their businesses in Wales and the advantage of doing so. So if you don't mind, what I'm going to do is I'm going to come to yourself first, Michelle, if that's all right. Michelle, maybe you could share with us, Wealthify, I believe, turned 5, literally a couple of weeks ago. So congratulations. Not such a young business now. You're at school age. So please share with us the sort of starting journey of Wealthify and why people should know about you and what it is that you bring to the FinTech ecosystem here in Wales.
Yeah, sure. And thanks for that intro, Sarah. So Wealthify is an online investment company, and we founded it, as you say, well, we launched it 5 years ago, and we spent about 18 months prior to that actually building out the kind of technology that sits behind the platform today. And I co-founded the business, and some of the reasons for why I wanted to build a service like Wealthify was really to enable people like me at the time to invest money in a very simple and safe way. So anyone can invest with Wealthify, no matter how much or how little money you've got, and we'll do all the hard work by managing that money for you. And I think at the time when we launched it, there was very little on the market like that. It was very much you either did it yourself, which is quite a difficult thing to actually know how to invest yourself, or if you went to a managed solution, you needed typically hundreds of thousands of pounds to get started. So Wealthify's kind of plugged that gap with a really neat, easy, digital, simple investment solution. And we've had quite a journey. I mean, I feel like it's 5 years, but I feel like I've spent my whole life at Wealthify now, to be honest. It's been, we've gone through a lot of different phases, I guess, as we've scaled up to the point we are now. So when we started the company, there were just a handful of us sitting in the corner of a room, whereas now we've got nearly 60 people. At Wealthify, we took on a majority investment from Aviva a few years ago, and we now sit as part of the Aviva group. So we've had quite an interesting fundraising journey as well. And we're really happy today to be investing money for around 50,000 people in the UK. So quite a substantial sum of money kind of on the platform now, who we're delivering really excellent investment returns for.
Michelle, that's great, and thank you for sharing that with us. And Wealthify was very much an early adopter of open banking, wasn't it? I mean, you talk about your platform being open to all, and actually being a customer of Wealthify, I know that you can connect your existing bank accounts and you can literally do very small investments to start you off with. What do you see next as the growth for Wealthify? You've sort of alluded to partnering with an established financial institution. That's most probably brought some good, some positives and some challenges. Are you able just to expand on those for us?
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, I think partnering with Aviva has been amazing for the business. I think from a capital point of view, Wealthify is a very capital intensive business. It costs us money to acquire those customers upfront, being a D2C business. So having their support and their backing has really helped us get to where we need to be. It also helps us, I think, reputationally, because there have been other robo investors that have come along and have gone over the years. And I think some of that is down to not having that financial backing and also that kind of credibility that sits behind us with, having Aviva as a partner. It's also helped us now start to make some steps into the B2B world. So we're looking at partnerships with other banks and financial institutions as well to help us kind of achieve the scale that we need to be to complement that D2C offering. So again, having Aviva as the case study, if you like, for how that could work has been really helpful. So we launched with TSB earlier in the year, and we've got some other partnerships in the pipeline that we're going to be excited to announce in due course.
Fantastic, and we look forward to those. Let me just bring in Gareth Lewis. So Gareth from Delio, maybe I'd ask you to do the same, just to introduce yourself and introduce Delio and the why for Delio, because we've just been talking about the Wealthify platform and the investment, and obviously that's one of the areas that you're very much focused on opening up for people.
Hi everyone. So my name is Gareth Lewis. I'm co-founder and chief executive of Delio. So born and raised in South Wales and moved back in 2015, 2016 to co-found the business. So Delio, we effectively came out of the premise that wealthy investors, so kind of everything from your traditional wealth management client through to institutional investors, are looking to allocate more investment into interesting investment opportunities, those more kind of entrepreneurial investments that they can typically know, see, feel, touch, understand, which kind of refer to as a private market space. We kind of really stumbled across what existing financial institutions were doing to cater to that demand in the market. So we started looking at traditional wealth management and the processes around offering access to private markets, and felt there was really, much more that these financial institutions could do for their clients in the space. And the benefit for the clients is that their bank is able to give them far bigger access than they could ever get on their own. And the benefit for the financial institutions is all around kind of driving their business objectives. So, improving relationships with clients, creating new monetization opportunities. So we kind of built a business and a proposition around that. So Delio, simply put, is a private market technology and solutions provider. We help any type of financial institution looking to do more in private markets do that in a way that works for them. So that's just kind of the technology platform being white labeled, configured for different use cases, helps with everything from originating deals through to the end reporting, but also some of the wider kind of proposition design and development as well. So we do get quite involved beyond the tech, and that's taken us everywhere. Private markets is a global industry, and our solutions is kind of works across different regulatory jurisdictions and the like. So it's it's taken us on quite a journey over the last kind of 5-6 years, operating now across 7 locations globally. Most of our team's still in Cardiff, which is great, and out and about, kind of trying to spread the virtues of doing more in private markets. And that's probably a good place to stop on.
And I think just picking up on that, and there might be people who've joined this call who've been dipping into some of the other events at UK FinTech Week. But one of the points that was made very eloquently earlier is that the fintech market was seen as being centred in London, with the Kalifa review and some of the data points that have come out of that. A third and growing part of the UK fintech market is outside London, and we've seen a big change with the pandemic, where actually the location is less relevant. But just coming back to the point about the investments, I mean, have you seen any challenges with being predominantly based in Cardiff? I know that you are globally based, but have you seen any sort of reluctance to working with yourselves as a Cardiff-based organisation?
I wouldn't say it's been a limiting factor by any stretch of imagination, particularly for kind of clients in the UK. So we service a number of large FIs across UK and Europe, and that's been the main part of our market, and we're slowly starting to see other regions hop on board. I don't think in markets such as Asia Pacific or the US, I don't think it's been any more of a challenge being based in Cardiff than it would have been based in London. I think in whatever market you're focusing on, if you are looking at selling to large financial institutions, they do have quite a high barrier to entry, and part of that is an expectation that you have that resource on the ground, and you do have a commitment to their geography just as much as you have a commitment to your own. So but I don't think that would have changed for us whether we'd been based in Cardiff or in London, to be honest. And we've actually done a number of projects during COVID with large financial institutions where they've been delivered completely remotely. So
yeah. No, thank you for that. And let me just bring Sina in, because we talked about the power of working with established financial institutions and new fintechs and partnering. And I know Sina's had some very exciting news this week. So Sina, maybe you'd share with us the Yoello product and why people should know about you and how they're going to engage with you. And then please share the benefits of working with established organizations.
Thank you very much, Sarah. Yeah, my name is Sina Yamani. I'm the CEO and founder of Yoello. And I guess the business was put together because, I mean, just the inevitable future of mobile payments and just how quickly it's approaching. So we've been building these solutions for the last couple of years now. We actually launched the business last year. It's coming up to our 1-year anniversary in a couple of months from now. So gonna have to celebrate soon. So I'm glad that everything's opening up now. But yeah, the business has been growing rapidly. A lot of people think that we actually pivoted the idea of because of the COVID and the pandemic and whatnot. But it was always the same. It was always around mobile payments and that inevitable shift. I mean, there's been that huge transition from cash to card, and now it's going over to phones. And there's a massive opportunity to build this infrastructure, this layer that kind of builds on top of an interoperable network that just doesn't exist yet. There's all kinds of new innovations coming forward that I'm sure that the people on this panel are actually using right now with open banking and PSD2. I know we're heavily involved with it as well. So there's a lot of opportunities in the space. I mean, our business has grown from, there was like 5 of us this time last year to now there's nearly 50 of us. I hope we can keep that trajectory going, but it's doubtful. But there's so many opportunities in this space, and fintech as a whole, I think in Cardiff and Wales is massively blooming, thanks to all the support that the government's putting in. Entities like FinTech Wales, for instance, has been massively helpful for me in particular. But in terms of the product, it's around mobile payments, QR codes, and enabling kind of the transition in terms of people consuming with each other through digital mediums rather than just cash and card. And it's a very, very early market across here, and Europe is probably about a 2% saturation. Whereas if you look at places like China and India, it's completely saturated. It's like 100% over there with the likes of WeChat and Alipay. And so we've been building these solutions that are rapidly growing. I think we've maintained a 30% month-on-month growth since we launched, and the customer acquisition is insane at the moment as well. Just in the last week alone, we had 50,000 new customers sign up to the platform, which is, I think, a new record for us. But our proposition is kind of trifold. We've got kind of a direct strategy, but we've also got a white label and a partnerships approach in which we're actually helping kind of the incumbents build these, well, not build, but kind of utilize these solutions for their customers. We've got a huge technology stack that people don't necessarily want to start kind of endeavoring into building themselves, whereas they can just partner up with companies like us and Delio, in fact, who can just take all that weight off their shoulders and kind of provide them with the utility and the function without any of the heavy lifting. And recently, we've partnered up with a bank called Hodge Bank. So it's local to us, so it's great to have that kind of collaboration and partnership in the Welsh ecosystem.
Thank you, Sina. And I think it's a lovely segue to bringing in Russell, because you were talking about the payments, the payment rails and the payment environment. And it's actually a very complex, for something that is such a straightforward transaction. We underestimate just how complex that is, and bringing that expertise and that knowledge and working with established businesses brings some great values. So Russell, it's maybe a really good opportunity to bring yourself in. Admiral Pioneer, I know, is a new arm, an innovative arm of Admiral, but it is looking to do exactly what Sina is alluding to, is to bring in those new areas of expertise to be able to serve your clients and your customer base. And also to sort of accelerate your own solutions in the market. So maybe you'd just like to give us an insight into Admiral Pioneer and what you're working on.
Great, happy to. Thanks very much. So I'm Russell Fisher. I'm COO of Admiral Pioneer. Most of the people who've joined probably know Admiral. It's worth remembering that Admiral actually was a fintech and a startup before that was a thing. So Admiral itself is actually going about 28 years. So it's still a relatively young business in the scheme of things, but is very much established and recognised name in the UK and globally. So Admiral has been established and proudly Welsh, I should say as well. And Pioneer is a new venture for the Admiral Group. So we're an independent business as part of the Admiral Group, and we are what's variously called probably a venture studio. And that means what we're really about is we're a business that builds businesses. So we've only established in the last year. So we've been built during lockdown, which has been an interesting experience in itself. But what we're looking to try and do is to grow new businesses. And those could be grown internally with our own teams and around our own initiatives, but also we're really interested in the opportunity to work with, partner and potentially invest in startups as well to help them successfully scale up. And we're broader than insurance. Our ambition is to move beyond insurance and become more part of people's lives. So it's great to hear these other three great companies who are doing that, because I think what customers' expectations are have changed dramatically, and it's much more about solving customers' problems than just offering products and services. And that's very much what we're embracing. So early days for us. We hope to emulate Admiral's success. So hopefully we'll be back in 28 years talking about when we started this.
Yeah, and we shouldn't forget that Admiral, as you said, was established here in the early 90s, and the Welsh FinTech financial services sector has got a lot to be grateful to Admiral for. It's also very it's a very supportive ecosystem, certainly from my perspective, and I've not been back in Wales for all that long, almost 6 months now, and the ecosystem is very supportive of each other. So let's just come on and actually talk about not only starting, growing, developing your business in Wales, but let's talk about what makes Wales a special place. And maybe Gareth, if I sort of come to you first, and I'll come on to Michelle, and then we'll change some of the questions.
Sure. Yeah, I think there's a lot to be said for the benefits of building a company in somewhere like Wales. I mean, for us at Delio, we're kind of similar size to Welsh FinTech, kind of about 60 or so people now. And I don't think there's any way that we would have been able to scale our headcount so quickly if we'd been based anywhere else. It was kind of, the overheads more broadly were a fraction of what they would have been if we'd gone to London, San Francisco, Singapore, or what have you. So I think in terms of that, and I think that links into kind of why it can be attractive for people as people to base their lives in Wales. I think the quality of life is second to none, particularly during this pandemic. I think that's really brought that out. The fact that everything you have on your doorstep in Wales, I feel like that's that's kind of selling itself. And we found a really good kind of source of talent pool has been people who have moved away from Wales, had super successful careers over 10 to 15 years, looking to start a family and perhaps coming back to be close at home to do that. So we've actually found some fantastic people over the years. Fantastic people over the years from doing that. So I think they're probably the key things for me. And I think then in terms of that on an ongoing basis, a lot of those people who have been part of that 60 people over the last few years have stayed with us. They've been super loyal. And I think there's a lot to be said for some of the personality traits that you find in Welsh people. Very, very open, very welcoming, very transparent, very honest, and very loyal. There's not that kind of ecosystem where people are jumping around here and there, or people are jumping from place to place. And I think all the founders in these businesses know each other quite well, and we're all quite supportive of everyone else's success as well. So I think that creates quite a nice, friendly, welcoming environment, and a welcoming environment for new entrants to come in and join that kind of growing cluster.
Yeah, I'd absolutely echo that, Gareth. I think there is a great amount of camaraderie between sort of Welsh fintechs and founders and organisations, and looking out for and supporting each other. I mean, Michelle, just coming on to yourself, would you? I'm sure you'd echo some of what Gareth was saying, but what for you makes Wales a special place to start a business, and what made you want to start your business in Wales?
Well, I think, in terms of wanting to start it in Wales, it was because my co-founder was already based out there and had a successful business that was, in Wales, Active Quote, which some of you will know. In terms of why it's a good place, I think something about the size of it makes it really special, because it's not too big and it's not too small, so you kind of get the good of both bits of that. So the good of a kind of big city and the friendliness of a smaller one as well. Yet you've still got that really good connectivity to London, which is, well, not been quite so essential this last year, but it definitely helps in normal times. I think attracting talent here is quite good, because you've got the returners, as Gareth was saying, people who want to return to Wales and have that lifestyle balance, which they maybe wouldn't get in the city. I think now we're coming out of this pandemic world, cross fingers, and we have more people, and we're sort of operating a better remote working policy as well. I think that will help attract talent too, because you can attract more people from the West or from maybe North Wales or other regions, so that they don't just have to be based in Cardiff as well. So I'm kind of looking forward to see how that kind of impacts our recruitment. And we're definitely already noticing that, when we're speaking to people in this wave of recruitment we've been doing this year, that is an attractive benefit to them and kind of opens up that pool quite nicely for us. And the only other comment I guess I'd make is being a capital city, I think, has advantages as well, because I just think naturally when people think of Wales, they think of Cardiff, and then there's a lot of attention and spotlight shone onto it. So it also attracts, capital and attention as well, which is helpful for the businesses. Yeah.
Yeah, no, and thank you for that. And as you sort of allude to, the closeness to London is a benefit, possibly not so much utilised in the last 12 months, but the ability to literally be in London in a couple of hours does give you the opportunity to access that, whether it be the investment, early seed investment, certainly as what I'm hearing is something that still is possibly lacking here in Wales, but access to whether it be policy experts or financial conduct authority or regulators, there's great access to the expertise that the London hub seems to still offer for that regard. Sina, starting your business in Wales, what's allowed you? You've talked to us about scaling your business rapidly over the last 12 months. What about Wales has uniquely allowed you to do that?
Yeah, I think the environment that Wales provides is fantastic. It's the right size to kind of be a really hospitable environment in terms of there's a great level of support around you, mentors. Everyone wants to help each other, and there's a great atmosphere and a great culture here. As I think Michelle mentioned, a lot of the CEOs actually know each other and they're friends, and everyone's actively trying to support each other, which is a great benefit. And there's this whole culture around the successful entrepreneurs who have gone through all the different stages of the life cycle of a business, and raising funds all the way to exiting, actually help the younger generations, not only from an investment perspective but also from the actual operational, the mentoring and the strategic side, which is fantastic. I know that I definitely wouldn't be where I am without the kind of mentors that I've had. When I started, actually, in fact, Gareth helped me significantly. He told me all kinds of stuff I shouldn't be doing, which was great advice and probably led me to where I am now. In terms of the investment piece that a few others have mentioned on this call, yeah, I mean, there's definitely in terms of actually sourcing funds, Wales is probably lacking a little bit behind on that, but that's not, I haven't found that to be a problem, and neither of the other companies. In fact, it's a problem more for the investors that I find, if they're not actively looking over here. There's no shortage of amazing businesses or startups in Wales, and if the investors aren't looking over there, they're kind of missing out on a huge portion of opportunities. But I've seen that kind of growing rapidly over the last few years or so. And as we've just alluded to, this is a completely digital world now, especially through the pandemic. There's kind of no barriers everywhere. Everyone's going offline, and even employment is becoming almost completely remote. So from that perspective, it doesn't really matter where you're based from an investment perspective, because we closed a couple of rounds of funding throughout the lockdown, and I didn't meet anyone. So there's no really requirement to be anywhere. It's more the kind of resources, the help, the guidance that the wherever you're located can benefit you from, and for sure Wales is significantly is up there in my ratings anyway.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right about that sort of ecosystem and the help. Russell, Admiral Pioneer most probably could have set up anywhere. Admiral is a very successful business. I know that they are rooted here in Wales, but Admiral Pioneer and what you were doing, you could have set up anywhere across the UK. What was the decision to make sure that you set up here in Wales, and why do you think that was the case?
Yeah, I think firstly, proximity matters to us. Being close to the parent business matters because of all the things we've talked about. A lot of the things we will be looking to do, we'll be looking to leverage some of the advantage that Admiral's built over the last 20, 30 years. So there was definitely, we wanted to be close to our parents, as it were. But also we have a business that we've grandfathered into Pioneer as Vago, and that was established and built in Cardiff. But also it feels the right place for us to do this. Potentially we will look at other opportunities to create other hubs across the UK, because I totally agree there is huge opportunity beyond London, and we want to make sure that we're accessing those. But Cardiff was the absolute logical place for us to start. Proximity, the talent pool that's available. I would call out one other thing. I agree with everything that everybody has said in terms of the culture and the environment. I absolutely agree with. I think one of the potentially really strong assets for us is the Welsh Government as well. That it's uniquely placed, it feels, almost, to be able to support, and they've been very actively involved, and we speak to them regularly. They're really keen to promote and support, and they offer, you know, a huge amount to businesses, ranging from, you know, being able to support international businesses coming here, but also working with them, accessing funding. There's huge opportunity in that, and I don't, you know, having spent quite a lot of time traveling right at the train station to London, I didn't ever see anything similar in London. It's a far more sort of bootstrapping approach up there, whereas this huge opportunity for support in Wales that I haven't seen elsewhere. So it's a great environment. I would agree. The ecosystem feels like it's forming nicely, and, you know, we want to be a key part of that ecosystem as well.
Yeah, as you said, the devolved government has some huge advantages here, and the DevBank Wales has some huge advantages. I think the other part of the collaboration in the ecosystem, and this is about people working together. We also have a very active diaspora, and the global Welsh activity is a really positive one, as is some of the activities that we do about Wales Week, not only Wales Week in London, but obviously Wales Week worldwide now, which is helping to put everything that Wales does on that global stage. So yeah, I think, you know, and FinTech Wales, we have a responsibility. We have a responsibility on behalf of all of our members to actually be louder and prouder about what is happening here, such that we do put yourselves on a global stage. I'm often quoted as saying, you know, our job is to find the next Alan Wynne-Jones on the muddy pitch of Bonamine on a Sunday morning, to get him into the Swansea team, the Cardiff team, the Welsh team, and most importantly, to get them onto the British Lions team and captaining the British Lions team, let's hope. And that's what we need to do for our fintechs, is to ensure that we can promote them on that global stage so they can really, really grow. I just want to come back to the talent pool, because a couple of people have referenced the talent pool, and just link in the universities. And maybe if you could share with me your experiences of sort of working with the universities, because, you know, we are seeing some great partnerships here. Michelle, do you want to sort of pick up on talent and university relations? Have you had any experience of working directly with any of the universities here?
Yeah, we're just looking at some work this year actually with Cardiff University, and they've got I think it's called the Data Innovation Accelerator, where they kind of can help you and give you some support with data-led projects. I think it's actually full now and kind of at full capacity, but they're introducing a new one, as I understand it, later in the year, which we're hoping to be a part of. And I think collaborations like that could be really helpful for us. I think to date we haven't maybe taken enough advantage of it as a company, and we haven't worked with them that closely. But saying that, you do get, you know, graduates from Cardiff University who come and work for us anyway, so you do get some of the talent pool kind of coming through from there, which is also helpful.
And Sina, if I could bring you in, you are a product of Cardiff University. So are you, in your sort of in the position that ULO's in at the moment, are you still partnering closely with the university, or what do you see that relation, or how do you see that relationship going forward?
Yeah, I mean, we've also worked with a variety of the universities, mainly Cardiff. We've also joined the Data Innovation Accelerator that Michelle was just talking about as well. Yeah, I'm an alumni. There's an amazing amount of young talent at the kind of the Cardiff universities, and I think with the right mentorship and the right guidance, then, you know, startups and, you know, even enterprise and corporates can make massive use of graduates and even internship programs. You know, we've had a lot of support from the universities from that perspective, which is great. I think it's kind of led by the governments and the entities like FinTech Wales. They're kind of trying to create a collaborative approach across all the major stakeholders, which universities are obviously one of. So yeah, I think it's great, and I know there's a lot of different points on the agenda for the next few years of how to kind of combine all different institutions together. So glad to see that and even contribute towards it as well.
Yeah, it's interesting that you're bringing up the National Accelerator Programme, which is a really ambitious programme here in Wales, and I think, you know, one which stands to really bring academia and business closely together for business benefits. You know, we've seen, and Michelle, you alluded to ActiveQuote earlier as one of the beneficiaries of that. I think they've taken something like 30% out of the cost of their supply chain. Which is significant, and that was as a direct result of a partnership. Gareth, have you experienced partnering with the universities here in Wales? I mean, I know that there's certainly one of the new challenger banks, which is growing here in Wales and is looking at fraud, is certainly working with one of the universities to look at the behavioural science behind some of those fraudulent activities, and looking to gain from that. Have you had any experience of working with the universities, or are you somebody who supports some of the graduate programmes that we also see as being really active here?
Yeah, so I think we've done a couple of things over the years with the business school at Cardiff in particular. So we've done one of the first things, you know, even in our early days when we were just a few people, we did a placement, and then we continued to do that placement on a yearly basis, and then we've also kind of run our own kind of grad scheme, and most of those recruits have been from Cardiff University. So I think I don't know the exact number, but I think quite a large number of our team are actually graduates from South Wales based universities. And I think going back to the whole business school side of things, been really impressed with the sort of people that have you know wanted to do something, you know, that could have very easily just gone and taken a fairly standardized, rigid placement during that time in the university, get a name on the CV and move on. And we found quite a lot of people who didn't want to do that and wanted to get some actual experience and do a little bit of everything. And I think that is something a smaller company is much more likely to be able to offer than perhaps a larger one. So that's yeah, again, sort of people we found on that. And then similarly on the graduate level, a couple of people we've taken out of Cardiff University have gone on to be really really, you know, integral parts of the business actually. And again, we're looking for something different than that traditional graduate role, and with all their friends maybe going off to other cities and stuck around and worked out pretty well, and then kind of done a couple of years with us in Cardiff, and then one of them's off to London, has gone to London once pandemic's over, looking to relocate to Asia. So yeah, there's quite yeah, we've been really kind of impressed with kind of the caliber of people coming out on the business side within the universities, definitely.
I mean, that's a great story, isn't it? And maybe something that people don't initially understand, that you can stay locally, you can work for a great growing fintech like Delio. You can come in, you can get a vast amount of experience, and here you are looking to give those members of your team the ability to continue working for you, but maybe working for you in London or working for you in Asia, and to travel. And I think that's something that sometimes we forget, that fintech is such a growing industry. There's a challenge there possibly, and I'm going to bring Russell in, but Gareth, I know that you and I both feel very, very passionately about sharing with the sort of school leavers a little bit more insight into what fintech is, how they might get involved in fintech, and the importance of that. And I know both you and I often are doing that circuit where we're sharing the insights. But Russell, with Admiral being, as I said, the original fintech here in Wales, what's the experience with Admiral from a university and an educational relationship? Because you know, I know you have some really rooted and strong values as far as that's concerned.
Yeah, I think as a business, we've been a huge beneficiary from Cardiff University and the university set up in Wales, and that's served us incredibly well. I mean, we're hugely optimistic about the future, but one of the worries that keeps me awake at night is the talent pool and the availability of the talent with the skills that we need. There is huge talent, but you know, the demand for data experts, digital experts, programmers, that's only going one way. And so, you know, we will continue to support and engage with the university network. But I think it's two things that we would like to do that perhaps we can do that the others on the call can't do, which is, firstly, we're delighted to sponsor the Foundry program. I think that there are any number of entrepreneurs who are self-taught, perhaps haven't gone through university, potentially have jumped roles, and within our teams we have people who have learned to program and now programmers. That's not how they started off. That's not what their degree was about. So we see the Foundry as a huge opportunity for people who perhaps aren't coming through the traditional route, and so that's one of the key reasons why we're absolutely delighted to be supporting and engaged with the Foundry program. And then perhaps longer term, my ambition is for our CSR, our corporate social responsibility, is to be far more engaged. We can't continue to be a net taker from the talent pool. We actually have to put into the talent pool. And having spent some time looking to recruit talent, it's often too late to engage. At 16, 18, unfortunately, STEM take up on females is terrible, and that happens very early in their academic careers. So one of the things that we're really keen to look at from a corporate social responsibility stage is, can we get engaged earlier? And that could be primary school, that could be at a far earlier stage that we could perhaps afford to do because we're a more established business with perhaps a different time horizon. So we're really keen to be to provide input into the community, and that can perhaps be at a different lens. And so we're keen to explore how we can work with primary schools, how we can run events and get people, young people, interested and exciting around the technologies and skills that we'll need going forward.
And I think it's an interesting segue into one of the significant focus areas at FinTech Wales is the skills and talent. And I know I'm pushing on an open door when I say that Michelle will be on a similar sort of trajectory to myself, to include more girls to come into the STEM subjects, but actually to include diversity as a whole, to include the whole gambit. And we're looking now at a lot of neurodiversity, great thinkers. And I say that as a highly dyslexic, very academically unqualified individual, but bringing, there are strengths to come from all over. And I think there's some interesting points there, Russell, about how do we engage, how do we ensure that young children from primary school going up to secondary understand what FinTech is. So when they do go, possibly with their parents, or when they're a little bit older, or maybe when they're slightly underage but still in the bars, and they're using applications like Cena's to actually buy and order their products, do they know that is FinTech? And I think there's a responsibility there for us, and it's certainly one of the focus programs that we have under our skills and talent objectives to look at how we do that. And we're really keen to use the Foundry as an opportunity to really grow those. And we're looking to, in fact, we will be trialing in a couple of weeks a debate with some young school children about FinTech subjects. So not the technical part, but does cash have a future? And we'll get them to argue those things. And so we'll be looking to all of you to put your hands up and be prepared to debate those things, and include and encourage the school children. But I think that's a really interesting point there. And as you said, Russell, Admiral Pioneer might have a little bit more scope with the CSR element. But I dare say most of the organisations here, as I said, Gareth and I have met each other on the schools circuit. So there's a lot of time and effort that is going into those socially responsible activities. So completely agree with that. Is there anything else that anyone would like to sort of add on the educational side? Have I missed anything that anybody else is doing, or areas where including and really encouraging that diversity to come into our industry? If anyone's got any further thoughts on that.
And just to say, obviously it is hugely important, and we're working on it at Welthify, trying to get more females in. We've got quite a gender balanced company, I would say, but just trying to increase the demographics even more to attract, to make it a kind of a very welcoming place to come. And I think we're doing a good job of it, but we do tend to get a similar demographic of candidates applying for our jobs. So it's about increasing the pool that you reach in the first place, I think, for us.
Yeah, I think the observation I would make as far as gender diversity, certainly in Wales, is that we have some great role models to look up to, with Julianne Haynes as the CEO of Principality, with Louise O'Shea as the CEO of Confused. And there are most probably more that I will forget, but also great Welsh women around, with Amanda Blanc, obviously from Aviva. So there's an awful lot of great role models there to aspire to. But as you said, Michelle, the job is not done. But we here at FinTech Wales would be looking to drive that, and where organisations might not have as much scope as maybe an Admiral might have to really invest in that, then we'll be looking to bring people in and try and expand your brands to more of the sort of up and coming talent, because as you said, it's a university career is not for everybody. It certainly wasn't for me, and it won't be for everybody. So we want to be inclusive to all, and we've got some great talent here in Wales. What I'd like to sort of start to sort of wrap up with as we come to the end of this session. So attracting talent to Wales and the work-life balance. You know, how important have you found it that we happen to live in a beautiful part of the UK, blending that sort of work-life balance? How have you seen that across your workforce? Russell, you're nodding enthusiastically, so I'm going to come to you and ask you how you think that has been a real advantage to attracting talent to Admiral Pioneer, which, as you said, is just sort of approaching its first birthday.
Yeah, I mean, we're a business that grew through the lockdown, which has been incredibly strange and challenging. I'm sure we've all had our own stories, but pretty much our team has only really met physically twice, kind of in that time, and in small groups, obviously approved groups. So we haven't actually spent. But what's fantastic is that we've been able to attract a real mixture of talent and people who can get their work-life balance right as they want to, so they can choose to do the work they want to do that's deeply rewarding, and it's clearly what they're interested in, but they can balance that with the lifestyle, the quality of life they want. And you know, I'm nodding vigorously because I have spent too long on trains. I've spent too long commuting, hours, weeks of my life lost commuting, and it's just so nice to be able to do the work for a company that I want to work for, doing the work I want to do, and not have to compromise on my family life quite so much, and not have to spend quite as long on planes and trains. And I think, who knows what sort of work patterns are going to be like post-COVID. I don't know, but I think there's going to be a rebalancing, and I think there is going to be, for people who work in startups and scale-ups, work is a key part of what they do. There is not a 9 to 5, it's, and I'm sure these three would probably agree, the phones are always on, you're working on the weekends, you're doing that sort of stuff, and being able to get the good, which means being able to go for a walk on the coast, as well as, it really does offset some of the challenges of being on conference calls from, at silly o'clock in the morning and things like that. So I think I'm really quite optimistic about what the future is going to look like, both for mental well-being and work-life balance for people, but also what that can mean and what that can open up for recruitment and talent.
Yeah, and as I said, I think, Michelle alluded to it, we are a capital city, so not only one that has mountains and sea, but we also have great sporting venues and great entertainment venues and lots of hospitality. We've got one question here that's coming in from the audience, so I'd quite like to pose this to you. Mike Lee is asking us, COVID has accelerated the mainstream adoption of FinTech as an accepted part of everyday consumer use. How are the panel preparing to maximise the customer acquisition opportunities that will come over the next couple of years? Sina, you're a very B2C sort of product. Would you like to take a lead on that? And then everybody else, please, I'll come to you individually.
Yeah, so yeah, we're in a strange position as a business. We're kind of B2B to C. We've got multiple products, and the B2B side of things is actually our acquisition strategy for the other customer base, which is working out very well for us. Like I said, over the last literally just 7 days, we had 50,000 new customers signing up to Uello, which is a great number, of course. And from that perspective, it's just having the technology in place that can kind of maintain that scale, and that's something that we envisaged from day one, building this platform. We've got an incredible tech team who just kind of built almost enterprise software with no customers at the helm, of just having the foresight of seeing the scale coming. And I think that's why we've been so successful from a business perspective as well, that our platform is so robust and malleable at the same time, that partners want to work with us, from third-party corporates to kind of resellers and integrators. And from that perspective, partnering up with other companies is our go-to strategy in terms of scale, creating a kind of beneficial approach that all different parties can profit together is a much faster acquisition strategy than kind of trying to take on the world on your own. So yeah, we've had a huge amount of success in that, and hopefully over the next couple of years as well. So
Great. Yeah, no, absolutely. And just coming on to Michelle, I mean, adoption of digital solutions we've seen that being huge over the last 12 months. I think there is a statistic that said 6 million people in the first month of lockdown last year actually downloaded their digital banking app for the very first time, and they most probably won't go backwards. So with the digital investment options and product that you give to the market, Michelle, how have you seen that sort of adoption? Are people's at home more? Are they spending more time looking to how they can invest? And obviously there are no real interest rates at the moment. So how have you seen that over the last 12 months? And what opportunity will you take from this going forward over the next couple of years?
Yeah, sure. So I think, yes, people are definitely more engaged. They've got more time on their hands. A lot of them, they're sitting at home wondering what to do with their money, and I guess how they can make more of their money as well, given that they don't have much else to do. And there has definitely been a trend which has been industry-wide to say that particularly the younger generation, millennials, so 25 to 35-year-olds, are investing a lot more with their money, and are kind of playing around with some of the newer type investment propositions as well. And so that includes Wealthify. There's also been, another spike in Bitcoin, as I'm sure most people are aware of, as kind of that draws more attention. And I think ethical investing as well, that's another theme that we launched an ethical investment proposition 3 years ago now, but that's also gained traction because you've got this new generation of investor coming through, and that they're demanding these kind of greener propositions. So I think for us, if we're looking at how can we capitalize on this going forward, it's really about how can we keep talking to this new generation who are investing with us. And they were always investing with us, but there's now more of them, and they're being more demanding, and they're also more aware, I would say, about the investing world, and they're much more engaged. So it leads us to nothing I can disclose on this call, or that we've got fixed plans on, but how can we adapt our proposition really to kind of accommodate them and develop with what they want as well.
Yeah, and I think that move to ethical investing and also the whole opportunity for green finance, or greening your finance, it is a great one. I mean, Gareth, with the private markets and the investment in the private markets, where do you see the opportunity for this sort of acquisition going forward for yourself? And I'm sure you've also seen this ethical investment demand growing.
Yeah, I think the pandemic was a lot of things, of course, but I think the whole around preparing for the future and future-proofing your business and looking at how you can acquire customers. I think it was a time for us where we were able to invest in our marketing, invest in operational efficiency of launching platforms. As I mentioned earlier, the ability to deliver a platform to one of the biggest banks globally, or remotely, I think is if you look at that from an efficiency perspective, and then what that time and resource can be freed up to do elsewhere in terms of an acquisition strategy, I think is pretty valuable. So I think there was there was times in that during the past couple of years that was giving us a chance to look a little bit more internally than necessarily externally, with a view then to coming out all guns blazing. And I think in terms of acquisition strategy, we're still trying to find a way to be out there and get in front of the right people, which is why something like the FinTech and the Innovation Lab in New York's been a good start for that for us, because it's allowing us to remotely, build relationships that probably would have taken me, 4 or 5 years to build in during old-fashioned times, I guess. So that's been a bit of time for reflection, and then also action off the back of that. I think it's been the key thing for us in terms of acquisition. I think on the impact side, I think that was definitely something as an emerging theme that within private markets and continues to be. I think there's with the kind of the new generation of investors at the high net worth side who are looking for access to interesting deals, and they're also looking for deals that they can make an impact with, which naturally that social impact piece becomes quite prominent. And we're seeing a big demand for investment opportunities that blur together that financial return with making that impact. And we've delivered a lot of platforms now for different social impact propositions, and we're seeing some really new interesting ones come to market as well. So looking at how they can take what are traditionally institutional products, add that and incorporate that ESG, that social impact layer, but then also look at how they're democratized. So not just accessing them at the high net worth level, but accessing them kind of down to mass affluent. So definitely some super interesting things going on there. We're by no means a driving force behind that, but we're trying to power a few people, a few fantastic people that are super passionate about it and are doing really great stuff, and we're proud to support them as much as we can.
And that's a great point as well at Wales as being great for insurance and great for comparison, momentum building on wealth and democratization of wealth and ethical wealth investing, which I think is also massively strong. And we're coming up to sort of the end of the session. So what I'd like to just do is go around the panel. If you had to say something to the audience that are listening to us today about why build your business in Wales, just in one sentence, what would that be? Sina, let me come to you. Why build your business in Wales? Then I'll come to Gareth, Michelle, and we'll finish on Russell. You're on mute. It's the first time I've had to say that.
My bad. Yeah, so it's Wales is a fantastic place, Cardiff especially. I've got friends all over the world trying to start their own businesses, and doesn't matter. I've seen people fail in London. I've seen people fail in Silicon Valley. I've seen huge success over in Wales. So it comes down to kind of obviously what you're doing, and but also kind of how you're executing it. And what I've seen consistently over here is the kind of the mentorship and the environment, and also the access to, it is cheaper over here compared to places like London. It's significantly cheaper, and even that alone has provides success in its own right. So I mean, this call as a whole has probably been a conduit to, I'm sure, a lot of further discussions about how Wales is flourishing now more than ever. So yeah, come on over, whether you're an investor or you're a CEO or a founder, come to Wales. Well,
come on over. We're open. Gareth, if I could come to you, and Sina can definitely talk. So a short sentence so that we can finish on time.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's do something differently, leverage what you've got that's different, and I think Wales gives you the opportunity to build a business in a unique way that you can't get in lots of big cities. So I'll probably go with that. Fantastic,
thank you, Michelle.
So my answer would be why not, in the shortest sentence. Good talent pool, as everyone said. Cost-effective place to do business. Great work-life balance, and if you're like one of the many people who have acquired a dog during lockdown, then it's also a good place for dogs.
Lovely, fantastic. And I noticed you have one prime of place on your website, so that's great. Thank you for that. Russell, you've got the last comment.
I'd just say it's all the hustle, none the bustle. So lots great stuff going on. It just feels like a really exciting time to get involved. So don't delay.
Fantastic. I'd like to thank everybody for joining us and sharing their passion. We have highlighted some of the people behind the passion growing FinTech here in Wales. So thank you very much, Michelle, Sina, Gareth, and Russell for joining us. You can find out more about FinTech Wales by looking at fintechwales.org. You can follow myself on Twitter at SW1GG, and you can find all of our panelists on LinkedIn. So I would encourage you to connect with them directly. They're doing amazing things. Come and be part of it. Wales is open. Come scale in Wales. Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you for your time, and thank you for joining us.